What's going on, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here with some notes, observations, things I saw during practice number 5 here at Green Bay Packers training camp. Ray Nitschke Field was the scene for the pads to come on, including one Jordan Love, who ran out onto the field to a big ovation. Obviously, people very excited to have QB1 in the fold out there practicing with no limitations, no easing him into it. Matt LaFleur indicated before practice there were no training wheels, no ramp up period. Apparently, he's been working, throwing on his own with a guy or two during these days where he hasn't been practicing. But the QB1 was full go right from the get go. The pads came on, Jordan Love was there. It was an exciting moment for Packers fans, undoubtedly. With the pads coming on, you could say the tempers were certainly flaring a little bit. There was a lot of physicality, a few dust ups here or there that were pretty minor in nature, except for one in particular. About halfway through practice, there was a running play where Dontavian Wicks apparently really was trying to finish that block on Keyshawn Nixon, which led to a pretty significant scuffle between the offense and the defense. Obviously, cooler heads ended up prevailing, but Nixon and Wicks were really going after each other. It got heated. Yeah, things got physical and heated. And I think a lot of this probably born out of frustration on the offensive side, simply because they have not been able to get going against this defense at all. And that was true at the start of this practice. Essentially, the first kind of 2 team periods, they were absolutely suffocating the Packers offense up front. They could not get anything going, even with Jordan Love back and ripping these passes, some of which were off target. I think it's fair to say Jordan looked fairly rusty early in the proceedings today. That changed later on, but the defense absolutely wrecking shop up front. And I think that frustration is did start to creep in on the offensive side. Josh Myers remains absent for a personal reason. He is not hurt, but he is not at practice. You've got Robert Rochelle dealing with the calf, Marshawn Lloyd with the hip, and Tucker Kraft with the pec. None of them practiced today. Still, I guess, a few days away for each of those guys. We'll see sooner rather than later for all of them, I suspect, but all of them remain out for today's practice. Zach Tom went through individual work yet again, but no team stuff, which gave you a starting offensive line of Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, Elton Jenkins, Jordan Morgan, and Kadeem Telfort, though Andre Dillard did get mixed in at times with the ones at right tackle. Like I said, early on, it wasn't pretty from anybody really up front. Though I will say, with the pads on and the ability to get a little bit more physical, the Packers did a little bit more work in the ground game today, and they had a couple of really productive runs, both the ones and the twos. So that was good to see. Good to see them kind of moving people, But pass protection was an issue yet again early in practice. I will say, whenever the defensive line makes a play, Vince Ogabasi, the assistant defensive line coach, is an absolute vibe. He is so loud and absolutely supportive of his guys, but he runs out onto the field after a play and daps a guy up and tells him like what he did right and encourages him and gives him a little few pointers, and then is back to the sideline. And then another play happens and you hear him explode again, and he's out there and he's really energetic. And I think the defense certainly seems to be feeding off of it. It was interesting. There was one play in particular where he got up very excited about something that Kenny Clark and company had done. And at the same time, they kind of crossed paths as they were doing it. Butkus, the offensive line coach, was reaming somebody out. I think it might have been Jordan Morgan. I'm not quite sure, but he was absolutely laying into somebody on the offensive line. So, bit of a dichotomy there, again, earlier in the proceedings. So while the defense, like I said, really kind of dominated early on, there was a moment after the first 2-minute period where the defense absolutely just suffocated the offense, where I noticed Matt LaFleur talking to Adam Stenovich and a couple other offensive coaches. And let's just say it didn't look pleasant. He wasn't reaming anybody out, but there were some words being had. They were all gathered around an iPad that Stenovich was looking at. And it really felt like a moment where Matt was saying, look, we have got to get this shit together. That's just an interpretation. That's what it looked like. I hope to ask Matt about it tomorrow at the press conference. But after that, the offense did start to get into a rhythm. There was a definite stretch there where Jordan Love hit a couple guys over the middle. He hit Watson for about a 20-yard gain. He hit Reed on a kind of a through route over the right side, and then he hit Dobbs in the middle for a decent gain, and Reed got going on an end around where he shook a bunch of guys in the secondary to the point where people on the offense started cheering and like got hyped up because it was such a good play. Um, so there, finally, there was some offensive rhythm about halfway through the practice, and it was just great to see because there's been so little of it. And this kind of extended to the second team as well. There was one play in particular where the right side of the offensive line opened a significant hole, which Emmanuel Wilson darted through, and he was in the second level facing off on against a safety who I couldn't tell who it was, but Emmanuel Wilson literally hit him with a high step. Like he was so in the open, he bearing down on the safety, picking up his legs and just juked him and kept going and eventually got ushered out of bounds. But it was great to see. It was a lot of energy finally on the offensive side of the ball. After the horrid 2-minute drill in the first part of practice, the final 2-minute drill, the offense finally got on track. Now, the first couple plays, Keyshawn Nixon was all over everything. Whether that was an attempt to read or there was an attempt to Wicks. Wicks, who you remember their fight earlier in the practice, he let him know about it. That certainly wasn't quashed at that point. But then, play of the day, by far, Jordan Love found Christian Watson up the left sideline for a roughly 50-yard gain, 45, 50, somewhere around there. Beautiful ball, perfect placement. Christian Watson just had to, stretch out for it just a little bit, makes a great catch, and they were cooking with gas at that point on the offensive side of the ball. A couple more plays, he finally hits Romeo Dobbs on a quick out in the front of the end zone for a touchdown, and the offense absolutely lost its mind celebrating because it's been frustrating, and they finally got in the end zone, especially in a 2-minute situation. It was just great to see. Unfortunately for the offense, that celebration didn't last too long because then I believe the threes were out there, and Jacob Eason threw what can only be called a duck into the left flat, which Javon Bullard was all over and took back to the house for a pick six. So Jordan Love and company finally heating up a little bit today at practice. Good to see. Hopefully there's no injuries coming out of today. Didn't see anything in particular, but you never know. We'll find out tomorrow when we get back onto the practice field. In the meantime, please hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell your family. Cheesehead TV, we are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide.